Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today I've got the tank review for the brand new Tier 8 Soviet medium tank, the Senjutsu TO-55. Now this is one of the Iron Maiden collaboration tanks that they've done, along with the Ammo Lad, which is the independent Era 2 tank. And it's basically a T-55 at Tier 8, so obviously down tiered in terms of stats, and it's got a Flamethrower. Initial thoughts on the Senjutsu? Well, I think it's a pretty good tank, to be honest. It's kind of like playing a Type 59, but without the preferential matchmaking, and then obviously having some extra little bits and bobs that make up for that. And if you know how to play a T-55, or any Soviet medium, to be honest, you'll probably get on quite well with this tank. The gun's pretty nice. The fact that you get the Flamethrower on the multi-weapon system is really quite good as well. The hull armour on the upper plate can be trolled to pen at times for the enemy team, so that you tend to get some nice bounces, especially when you're on ridge lines. And you do have to be careful about when you're hull down that your cupola is rather large and it's quite easy to pen for the enemy team. But the mobility is pretty damn nice as well. The camo's pretty good. On the whole, as a Tier 8 medium tank, it's not that bad. And in terms of its DPM, along against all of the other sort of Soviet-esque tanks, so that's the Chinese ones with 100mm and all the Soviet 100mm as well, it's around middle of the park, right? It's around the same ballpark as most of them, in near that 2k DPM area. But it's a pretty damn nice tank. Is it worth the gold? Well, that's only you can answer that, really. But I do think if you were to pick this tank up, you're probably having a pretty decent time with it. And it's got this pretty cool Iron Maiden skin with all the arrows on it as well. It's up to you whether that's worth it or not. And just like the Ammo Lad is exactly the same as the Senjutsu, in that it plays a song in the garage if you sit there with it in your garage. Now, obviously, I can't show you that because of YouTube and DMCAs and stuff like that. So, yeah, you'll have to trust me on that one. You'll have to do a trust me bro on that one. But yeah, you can listen to music in the background for the tanks. So, without further ado, let's get into the statistics of the Senjutsu TO-55. So, like I say, it's basically a T-55, but at Tier 8. And you've got 680 horsepower on your engine, 55 km/h top speed, and a 23 km/h reverse speed, with a 17.02 horsepower per ton ratio, which means you hit this 55 km/h pretty easily, and 23 km/h reverse speed is absolutely fantastic. The mobility on this tank is pretty damn nice in total, to be honest. You get 1,350 hit points, which is around about what you get as a Tier 8 medium. You know, you're in that 1,250 to 1,200 to 1,400 range in terms of medium tanks at Tier 8, so 1,350 is not too bad. 50 degrees a second on the hull rotation speed is absolutely rapid, which you just got to bear in mind that your turret is slower than the tracks. You got 1.4 soft terrain, 0.8 medium, 0.7 on firm, so your ground resistances are pretty damn good and will not really impact your top speed all that much. You've got a 334 meters of still concealment, which is actually pretty decent. And when you put a camo net on, you can actually get that down to about 280. But would I recommend putting a camo net on? I don't think I would. I think you want to try and kit this tank out to make the gun better, because on the whole, the statistics base-wise aren't too good for the gun. So you want to try and help the gun out as much as possible. And you've got 380 meters view range, which is pretty average for a Tier 8 medium tank. You've got 44 degrees a second on the turret rotation. Like I say, it's slower than the 50 on the hull rotation, so it might be something that you want to make better with taking something like rapid aim. Totally up to you. You've got 2.28 accuracy during rotation, which is not very good, if we're honest. So you want to take vertical stabilizers and snapshot to make that better. You got 14.25 degrees of elevation, which is pretty decent, but 5 degrees of gun depression, which is very Soviet, and you'll have very awkward situations where 5 degrees just isn't enough. You've got to be very, very careful when you have a tank with 5 degrees of gun depression, where you put yourself. It's all about using the terrain to your advantage, stuff like that. You've got a 10.2 second reload, which is a little bit slow, and 18.82 DPM. Like I say, it does feel a little bit slow, but the fact is you also have a Flamethrower as a backup, which is probably why it has to be a little bit slower than a lot of the tanks. Like I say, you are actually towards the bottom end of the middle of the pack for the Soviet 100mm and the Chinese ones too. But you do have pretty nice alpha, and also, like I say, the Flamethrower is a backup, which can be pretty useful, as you'll see in the replays. You've got 0.37 base accuracy, which isn't the best, which is again why you want to make the gun as good as possible. 3.26 meters of accuracy while on the move, which is pretty not that nice, again, so you want to make that better with run and gun and vertical stabilizers. 2.1 second aim time, though, is pretty nice, so that's something that you bear in mind, that when you get the gun on target, you won't take too long to aim the shell, which is pretty good. You've got 201 penetration on the standard AP rounds, 330 pen on the heat rounds, which is filthy, and 50 pen on the HE rounds, which can be quite useful for some of the low armor targets, which gives you 420 damage. You do have 320 alpha on the AP round, though. This is the old school T-54 gun, the gun that used to be on the Object 416 as well, although they buffed the Object 416 to get 221 pen, like the gun used to be when the T-55A came out, because the T-55A also used to have the 221 pen, and then they buffed it up, and then the 416 they buffed up to the 221 pen. Whereas this has got the proper old school T-54 gun that used to have 201 pen and 330. At tier 8, when you're facing tier 10s, you're gonna need the 330 heat pen. There is no way around that. But at tier 8, the penetration is pretty decent on the tank. Doesn't hold it back too much. If you played the old school T-54, you know how this gun is going to handle, how this tank is going to handle, because it basically plays like a T-54 or a T-55. It's good in that way. You've got 1,070 meters a second shell velocity on the AP rounds, 895 on the heat, which you do have to bear in mind that if you fire in the heat, you have to give a good amount of lead because the shell velocity isn't the best. 1,070 isn't too bad for a standard AP round, but it's also not like some of the other tanks where you're getting like, APCR with 1,400 or stuff like that. So just bear in mind that you really do have to lead your targets. And as you can see, you do also have the Flamethrower, which is a 6.5 second reload for reloading the whole fuel, whatever you want to call it, for flames. And you just put out a decent amount of damage with this gun. Its max range is only 90 meters, so you have to bear in mind that you have to be very, very close in to be able to actually use the Flamethrower. And in terms of the armor, so I'm just going to have a quick look at the armor here. As you can see, the cupola on both sides, but the left-hand side especially, so if you're shooting at a Senjutsu, just aim for this cupola and you will pen it quite easily, and it's a big fat target to hit. The upper plate, as you can see, has spaced armor, which is actually 15 millimeters of spaced armor right here, over the upper plate, which is 100 millimeters on the upper and lower plate. So if you're shooting at this thing, shoot the lower plate. The lower plate is the weak spot. Because of the spaced armor on the upper plate, if you're firing heat, a decent amount of heat rounds will just get absorbed in this upper plate. So just bear that in mind, that you have to hit the lower plate. And actually, if you're on a ridgeline, this can bounce you a decent amount as well when you're facing tier 8s and some tier 9s, which is decent. But you do have to be careful that this turret is pretty nicely rounded and will bounce you a decent amount, like most Soviet tanks. But if you're facing the higher pen tier 10s, they can go straight through the turret cheeks right here, pretty much, right next to the gun. So just be careful with that. Do what you do on a ridgeline, keep wiggling, keep moving, make it as hard as possible for them to hit those shots. So in terms of equipment on the TO-55, I run the advanced loader, the vertical stabilizers, and optics. I run the loader to make my DPM 10% better, the vertical stabilizer to make the gun as good as possible, and the optics to make the view range as good as it can be. And then in terms of a crew, I have put it in the K91-2 here to make it easier, generally. And we're going to stick it in the Senjutsu, and I run Born Leader, Rapid Reload, Sixth Sense, Situational Awareness, Trap Mechanic, Camouflage Expertise, Steady Aim, Snapshot, Run and Gun. The 3 gun perks to be able to make my gun as good as it humanly can be. As you saw, the dispersions aren't the best, so I do want to make that better. Camouflage Expertise to make the camo better in general, because you can get it down to a decent level, and it's nice to have some sort of camo on a medium tank. Trap Mechanic, because I tend to brawl a little bit in this tank, and I like to, because it can side scrape pretty damn nicely as well. I do like to have Trap Mechanic in case they blow my tracks off, and thus I can get them back on pretty damn quickly. And, well, these 5 perks in general you're going to take on every single tank in World War II. So, have we put food back on? We haven't, so let's do that. And yeah, in terms of the armor on the side, by the way, let's have a quick look at that. You do have very Soviet, again, you've got 80 millimeters of side armor, which means you can side scrape pretty damn fantastically, just like you can in a T-54 or a T-55. So bear that in mind, that it is a pretty decent side scraper too. But yeah, let's have a look at the statistics of the tank while it's fully set up with the crew we have and the equipment. So as you can see, its ground resistance has got a little bit better. The camo's now at 322, so only like 10 meters better, but it's still pretty nice. You've got 486 meters of view range, which is fantastic. You'll be able to spot so many tanks with that. You've now got a 47.78 degrees a second turret rotation speed, which means you're still slower than the tracks, but it's still kind of useful. Well, it's, you know, it's still not slow, is it? 47 degrees a second, let's be real. You've got 1.21 accuracy during rotation now, which is way better than the 2.2, was it? Something like that. You've got 7.44 second reload on the main cannon now, which is actually 2.5, nearly 2.6k DPM, which is pretty decent. You've got 0.3 accuracy, which is far better than 0.37 you had. 1.93 accuracy aim time, 1.93 second aim time, which is pretty good, and a 1.86 accuracy during movement, which is way better than the 3.3 odd it had, which, yeah, it makes a big difference to the gun. It really does. If you don't have vertical stabilizers and run and gun and stuff like that, it really does make a big difference to how good this gun actually is. So you really want to set it up to make the gun as good as possible. And by the way, in terms of that crew as well, if you didn't want to run Trap Mechanic, I would recommend running something like Rapid Aim, just so that you get that turret traverse above your tracks, so that if something is going around you, you can swivel the turret faster than the tracks and you can get the gun on target. But yeah, on the whole, this tank is pretty damn solid as a tier 8 premium medium. Is it outstanding OP incredible? No. But it's not bad. It's pretty good. It's just a pretty good tank, which is the way it should be. The multi-weapon system on the flames is a useful secondary for it, because the amount of times that you basically shoot people and then have them on like 100 hit points, the flames will basically deal with that problem very, very easily for you. But yeah, on the whole, it's pretty decent. Is it worth it? Well, only you can decide whether it's worth it or not. I think it's a pretty solid tank. So as always, everybody, I'm going to send you over to the replays where you can enjoy the tank, enjoy the replays, and see what, well, you know, see how the tank handles in different situations. So as always, everybody, I'll see you in the replays. So here we are in the replays with the Senjutsu TO-55, and on this first replay, we're in a tier 10 game, and we're on Sunset Coast. And this is probably the more average game I had in the tank, pretty much. And what we're going to do is we're basically going to go towards the position at E5 and see if we can get up on top and try and get some shots out of the people along the 8-9 line. And then if they decide to attack the cap, that way you can try and defend the cap too. And as you can see, the mobility of the Senjutsu is pretty damn decent. I mean, 55 kilometers an hour is nothing to sniff at. You get to your position that you want to be in pretty damn quickly. As you can see on the move, the gun handling's a little bit bloomy. Like, the gun does bloom out a little bit. You just got to be careful of that. But we spotted this machine out over here, and we're just like, okay, you know what? This tank's pretty decent at side scraping. Let's see if we can get some shots into the drive wheel of that machine, because he was just poking up a little bit, and we can overmatch the drive wheel of, well, we can overmatch the side of the machine, so you can actually just auto-pen it if you hit the right spot. But unfortunately, we ended up bouncing, but I just decided, okay, you know, if that machine's going to stay there, I'm going to pull up into position up here where I can shoot down on him, and possibly from here I'll also be able to get shots at the guys along the JK line too, and that way we can start helping our team that are over there. We haven't got much backing us up though, so we do have to be very, very careful and keep our eye on the mini-map, because if they send enough teams round the E line, they're going to start shooting us in the ass, and we don't want that. We got a nice shot there into the Centurion 1, or just the Centurion as it said. And now we're looking for a shot into this object 705. We get a nice shot into his side. As you can see, 320 Alpha is pretty nice at tier 8. I really like, so a lot of the tanks at tier 8 are, when they're 100mm, tend to be 240 or 250 Alpha, right? Most of the Soviet-esque tanks, and by Soviet-esque I mean obviously Chinese and the Soviet tanks, they're 100mm, except for the 416 at this tier, all tend to have that 250 Alpha, so having 320 is really nice. Obviously, this reload is a little bit long, and it does feel a little bit long, as you see, 7.4 second reload as we've got, but when you've got the Flamethrower as well at close range, it doesn't feel too bad, because like I say, you can just put the damage in and then put someone down to like 100 hit points and just flame them. As long as they've not got a flame, we'll get there in the end. Fire extinguisher. As long as they've not got a fire extinguisher, we'll be okay. So as you can see, we're trying to get a shot into this 705, and we end up bouncing the standard AP round off his lower plate. That's because 201 pen at this angle at this distance isn't quite good enough. Then we get spotted, which is actually the heavy tank below getting within our proxy spotting circle. So we just got to be very, very careful here, because things like that 7058 aren't going to be happy that we've been shooting at them, because at the minute we're up to 1580 damage with 728 assistance, which is pretty decent. There's a heavy tank coming up through the middle, which I've just got to be careful of, but I'm determined to try and get a shot at anything that's along the JK line. So we're just looking for a shot. We can see there's a tree line down there, so we're just going to pop a blind shot. And as you can see, an SU-122-54 actually gets spotted up. And we were so close to hitting that guy blind. If we just aimed a little bit more to the left, we'd have actually hit that guy. But yeah, we just got to be careful about the heavy tank behind us, because obviously that can come and get us. And we've realised, okay, no, I need to go help this heavy tank behind me with the Conqueror. And if you listen, the gun sounded not very big, which means he is stopped, which means he fires pretty quickly. We try our best to get the shot into his drive wheel, but our gun depression lets us down, and I decide, you know what, I'm going to take a hit from this Conqueror, and then I'm just going to flame him, and that's what we do. We end up putting all the flames into him. He gets shot by the medium from behind, which makes him near enough a one-shot for us with the main cannon, and we shut him down with the main cannon, because just like all the other multi-weapon systems, if you have the ability to shoot the main cannon, shoot the main cannon, right? Always keep your eye on that bottom left bit. You see where it says secondary at the minute. When you're using the flames, always keep your eye on that, because you can see when your main cannon is loaded. There's no point just keeping the flames going if your main cannon is going, because you will destroy your... Well, you'll be quicker just to make use of the main cannon as well. Unfortunately there, we take a big hit from the T-92. The E3 is now turning around to look at us, and I'm like, okay, nope, not doing that. And there's something I haven't realised, and that is the medium tank coming behind me. I load heat because this is an E3, and I just have not realised situational awareness at its finest, and we get shut down by the Barask. Sad times. That is the Eddie Commander, by the way. Eddie Killers is what I've got in this tank, and he makes just weird noises. And we finished that first game with 2.8k damage, 728 assistance, the second class, 1410 base XP, a pretty average game for the Senjutsu, a pretty average game really for any tier 8 tank. And it's just a shame that we ended up not paying attention there to the Barask, because, well, we'd basically reloaded our standard AP round there, and we decided, okay, no, I need the heat for the E3, and I hadn't paid attention to my minimap, and thus the Barask ended up shutting us down. Because if we just stuck with the standard AP and realised that the Barask was actually coming in, we'd have been able to kill that guy. But hey-ho. Pretty average game, but it's also in a tier 10 game, which is decent. And we're into the second replay, which is in a tier 10 game again, and we're on Fisherman's Bay. So what I've just done is destroyed the first half of that building there, because that, by doing that, that gives me a free shot into the town at E8, because that little bit of the building juts out and means I can't shoot down into the town. And we've caught out this poor Mauerbrecher who is crossing in the open, so we're just going to get the shots in as quickly as possible, which isn't that fast, realistically, because this tank, like I say, the rate of fire is just a little bit slow. But we do manage to get through the third shot into him just before he gets into the town, and we're up to 925 damage. So we're just waiting for ourselves to get unspotted, then we're just going to pull forward and try and get back into that position. This Rhinoceronte in front of us actually can't see us. I'm just aiming for that little weak spot that's on top of the gun, but actually 201 pen can't quite go through that, so we're just going to load the heat rounds to go through it. We get slammed by the artillery there for, what, 450? Ended up damaging so much in our tank. And I was kind of hoping that our 330 heat pen would go straight through the front of that Rhinoceronte's turret, but it didn't quite go through. And we end up getting hit again by the M53-55. I was just looking to see what RT it was, and it's like, okay, it's a 53-55. That's why it's hitting harder, and it's hitting really regularly. So we just got to keep ourselves moving. We've got to be careful, because we don't want to take a hit, because it will set us on fire if it does it. And then we find this 279E in the town. It's like, hello, Mr. 279E. I have the perfect round for you. 330 heat. Let's get grilling. And, well, he's just doing the worst thing he can do, which is sitting perfectly still. So we're in the perfect position where he can't see me. I can just keep firing this heat round. And, well, the poor guy is now very, very alone and getting absolutely slammed. We go back to the AP because he's given us his butt, and we don't need the heat to pen that. Primo Victoria is moving through the centre. We slam the shot through the side of his turret. We're up to 2.1k damage so far. And I'm just trying to keep myself in a position where I'm sort of moving and stuff like that, because I don't want to get shut down at this point. We're having a decent game so far in a tier 10 game. And yeah, like I say, I don't want to get shut down. And that artillery is looking at us once again. And I just don't want his love. I don't need his love. You know? And we don't want to get hit by it. He fires, which makes me go, okay, you know what, Artie's fired. We're going to pull out. We'll see if we get a shot into this RU. We don't need the heat rounds, but at this point I didn't want to changed because of DPM issues. We actually break the engine of that poor RU, and I just take the gamble that he's still there, and he is, so we end up shutting down the RU. We're up to 2.4k damage with a kill, and we're just looking for a shot into the Rhinoceronte's side of his turret. We actually have it, but of course I've got heat loaded, which means that the fence post takes the heat shell. So, yeah, it's something you do have to be careful of, obviously. If you've got heat loaded, spaced armor / destructible cover will take your heat shell. I try and get the shot into the Primo Victoria, who got shot into us, but unfortunately we hit his turret with the heat, which means it just didn't go through. And we're just having to be very, very careful, because as you can see, the enemy team is breaking through at K2, and they do still have things camping at B2. But we have won the town, and their artillery, which I'm just looking at in case he moves into position beyond this house where I can get a shot into him, the artillery is getting shut down, which means that the guys that are down there at 8889 would actually be able to push up the A line, and they'll maybe start spotting those guys that are in their base, or should I say on their camper hill. But like I said, we do have to be careful though in this position right now. As you can see, I'm manoeuvring myself into different places here to keep sort of try and get some vision or try and get different shots out. But I'm being very, very careful because I don't want to be spotted when I do it, because I obviously don't want to get hit, because I'm kind of a one-shot for a lot of tanks. We knocked down the tree there that way so that possibly I might have some extra camo if I'm firing that way. But then the tanks that are in their base actually get spotted. We go for the shot into the UDES, and I actually missed the UDES and hit the 4005 that got unspotted. I decided, okay, I'm going to take a blind fire in case that 4005 is still there, or that UDES was still there. Kind of wish I hadn't done, because, well, the 4005 ended up driving out into a position I could get a shot, but hey-ho, it is what it is. Then we notice this bat tap, well, not bat tap, sorry, a bat chat, the actual tier 10, and we get a nice shot there into him as we go, and you can just see the gun depression was just a little bit awkward while looking for a shot into that bat chat, but we're just keeping our gun going. We're keeping our eye on both sides of the map, because this is at the minute very even. It's very, very close at 9-8, and we're just trying to keep the gun working, trying to keep ourselves aware of what is going off on both sides, because, well, it's tight. We managed to get a nice RBRT into the bat chat. We try and shut down the bat chat, but we end up just not leading it quite well enough, and the PTA shuts him down. Now there's an E50, which just got the side of his turret. We try and get the shot in there, but he ends up moving away just in time. Something bounces off the Centurion 9, which is in their back corner, so I'm just going to be very, very careful. We get a nice shot there into the E50, who tried to snapshot us, and thankfully that E50 ended up missing. The two guys that were at D4 are now gone, so we don't have to worry about that too much. They do have the stuff the TD that was at A2, which I still think is the 4005, but we're just not going to worry about that. We get a shot in to shut down the E50, and we're just going to pull back so we're behind this ridgeline, so it's as difficult as possible for whatever is camping in that corner to get a shot into us, because there's still a TD and a medium tank, so that's what I'm expecting to be in that corner. So now we're unspotted. I am going to see if we can move forward, but I realise the Centurion 7-1 is going forward to spot. I was going to go forward and spot, but I thought maybe actually I will get shut down if I do that. The Centurion 7-1's going, I may as well just use him as a spotter. We try and take a blind fire at the standard B, but end up missing, and unfortunately, just as I fired, he ended up getting spotted, which is why I put my gun in the air. I was like, oh, if I just waited a split second. But we did manage to get a shot into him, and then he gets shut down by the Centurion 7-1. And we finished the game with a pretty damn nice total in a tier 10 game. We finished with 2 kills, 4.2k damage, 245 assistance. Confederate, the second class, 1701 base XP. Pretty decent game for the Senjutsu in, yeah, a tier 10 game. And it's always nice to have a pretty decent game in tier 10, right? Because, well, as a tier 8, you always feel like you're going to get slapped about by those tier 10s. And, well, yeah, as you saw with the Object 279E, you have that 330 heat pen. And 330 heat pen is, okay, Mr. Eddie, you sound, yeah, he sounds healthy. But yeah, you have that 330 heat pen. And going into tanks like the 279E, you don't really have too much problems penning them. I mean, at the end of the day, this gun used to be really solid on the T54. So, if it was adequate enough on a T54 at tier 9, at tier 8, it's a pretty damn nice gun. And to be honest, it's one of those guns that I was kind of like, when they buffed it on the Object 416 to 221 pen, it was kind of like, I don't think it really needed it. Because at tier 8, 201 pen, yeah, 201 pen ain't that good, but when you've got 330 heat pen, yeah, that's dirty, and it will serve you very, very, very well. So we're on the third replay, and the third replay is on Westfield, and we are just going to move forward to try and get into a bush to spot the guys that are crossing up onto the K line. But we end up getting spotted by the T-41E1, and we do see this Dragon. So we've cut this Dragon off, and we're just going to basically keep ourselves moving, so it makes it as difficult as possible for him to shoot us. We did take a shot from the light tank up top, which was an LTG, but so far, these guys are the only ones that seem to be going this way. This T-44's decided that... I think this T-44's just decided that death is the best way to end his life in this game. He doesn't want to play to Westfield, clearly. And we end up shutting him down with the Flamethrower. So we got a shot into him, put him onto like 100 hit points, 200 hit points, and then just used the Flamethrower to wipe the rest of his hit points out. And now we're on the move to see again if we can push forward and get under the gun line of those that will be sitting at G4. Now we're unspotted. It's time to go. I'm just keeping my eye on the LTG because obviously he can get shots into my rear as I push up to these rocks. But then we get spotted and detected. It's like, what's that? Oh, it's the T-41E1. We end up missing the shot. I'm just going to try and flame him a little bit. But, well, as you can see, it's not going very well. We only do 12 damage. Then we spot the T-54E2 in their base. So we get a nice shot snapped into him. And we're just going to drive up on top of this ridgeline and see if we can get some flames into the VK3002D. Although... it really looked like we were hitting him there with the flames. It just never went anywhere near him. Or didn't do any damage. I don't know. The flamethrowers are a bit wonky at times. It feels like you've got the reticle on them. You're shooting, but just nothing seems to happen. So we're just going to flamethrower this Ferdinand if we can. So you can see we're going full flame. And we ended up taking a hit from the left. And we get very lucky, actually, because as you heard, the Balsig with the big gun actually fired and missed us. We have to be very careful in this position because we don't have 10 degrees of gun. We don't have very good gun depression. We have 5 degrees. And with 5 degrees, it means we have to overexpose quite a lot to get the shots that we want. We're just going for shots into this T-41E1. We get 2 shots into him, which is nice, but we are a one-shot for stuff like the Baltic. We do have to be very, very careful. We're up to 2.8k damage with 1400 assistance. We have a good amount of people behind us, though, so there's possibility of getting some good spotting. And this is where we have to be snapshotty. We got a nice snapshot there into the Tiger 1, but I couldn't stick around for too long because, well, it gives the people the chance to get shots into us. Unfortunately, we couldn't quite get a shot into the Tiger P as we tried to snap the shot into him on the move, but... hey, we get another shot into the Tiger 1, and again, like I say, I'm being very, very careful because there is people on our left which we are trying to get shots into me, but we go for the shot into the Tiger P, we ricochet off the Tiger P there, and as you can see, I'm not sticking around for too long because we're going to take a hit. And that bounce on the Tiger P made me think, okay, I've got to aim it. We make sure we get the shot into his side. And unfortunately, the Balsig that I said I should be careful of gets the shot into my side. But fortunately enough, we do finish with the victory. Finish with the 3.8k damage, the 1827 base XP, the 2800 assistance as well. Confederate, the first class. Yeah, 1827 base XP. A pretty decent game for the Senjutsu. It's just a shame that we basically didn't pay the Baltic enough. Basically, what did me in there was the first bounce on the Tiger P, and I went, okay, I've got to make sure that I'm getting this shot into the Tiger P to pen it, which meant I hesitated an extra second, and we just couldn't quite get the shot in. Well, we did actually get the shot into pen him, but it meant we stuck around for too long, and the Baltic ended up getting the shot to us. That would have been so much easier if we had like 7 degrees, 8 degrees of gun depression, because we had to keep poking up just a little bit too much on that ridgeline to do the damage that we needed. And we didn't pay enough attention to the tanks like the Baltic. Although I was hoping that some of those tanks that were coming up on top of the ridge would be getting basically obliterated by the people behind me, but it didn't quite happen. And we're on to the 4th and final replay of this game, and we are on this map, which is Serene Coast, and this is the best game that I've had in the tank so far, and we're going to push very aggressively straight to C1 if we can, because from there we can try and get ourselves a bit hulled down and shoot the people that get stuck in the low ground. We ended up missing this T-71 CMCD. We try and flame him, and then I kind of wish I hadn't used the flame and reloaded because this Barask ended up coming along. We did get the track in though, which meant that he ended up bouncing his first shot. I actually tried not to pen him there. I tried to actually track him in place, but hey ho. The Astron Rex bounces off our upper plate there. The T-44 bounces off our upper plate because it's an extreme angle on the ridgeline. We come over, get a shot through the cupola of the Astron Rex there, and we're going to try and use the flamethrower as we can. So we get 1 shot for 12 there into the T-44, but we're just reloading the flamethrower as soon as possible. That Astron Rex manages to get a shot straight through our cupola there, which is really unfortunate, but like I say, that cupola is big and it's fairly easy to hit if you get the opportunity to shoot it while you're while you're facing it while it's hull down like this, that's the best thing that you can do. So we're in a really awkward fight here because we've moved over more to the left into the position we're in now. As you can see, I'm trying to maneuver the ridgeline enough so that I can get the gun depression to fight these guys. And I need to start dishing some damage into this T-44 because as you can see, the Astron Rex is clearly reloading, but now he's clearly not. So we get a shot through his upper plate there, which puts him down to a one-shot for us. And now we're just going to try and side-scrape off of the dead wreck of this A44. He ends up driving up. We slap the shot into his lower plate and shut him down. We end up trying to use the flames, but hit the dead wreck there. The Brest from earlier is trying to get a shot in. He ends up bouncing off our upper plate. And we get a nice shot in to put him down to a one-shot. The T-44 is coming back, so we're just going to side-scrape off the dead wreck of the A44 here. Like I say, if you can get yourselves into a brawling side-scraping situation, like a lot of the Soviet tanks, this tank is really damn nice. So the SU's moving up. As you can see, we're just trying with the gun depression to get the shot into the Brest to shut him down, and we do. And now we've got the T-44 and this SU in front of us. The T-44 bounces off our turret. The SU's coming up, so we're going to try and make sure we get a shot into him and then flame him a little bit because we want to make it so that he's at least a one-shot for the cannon. The T-44 has resulted to firing HE. We get a shot through his side, though, as he's exposing. We're now trying to flame him again to try and just finish him off with that flamethrower, so we get a little bit of damage into him. But I do have to be careful of this SU because it's like, this guy's got the derp gun. Is he firing AP, heat, or HE? If he's firing HE, he's probably going to kill me. Heat and AP, I can bounce if I side-scrape properly. So we're going to take the risk. And thankfully, he never takes the chance to fire at us. And we end up finishing him off there with our main cannon with a lucky little bit of high roll. Now we're going in on this T-44. We're just trying to flame him to death. But it's taken a bit too long, so I'm like, screw it. We fire the AP through the T-44 and finish him off. We're currently detected, which makes me go, oh no. We reload the fuel for the flames again. We end up bouncing something, well, the dead wreck in front of us bounces a shot. We go for a shot into the IKV there, and it goes low and only does track damage, which is really irritating. Now we're going for the shot into the side of that IKV. We track him again and do no damage. Come on, gun. Please, it's an IKV. This T-71 CMCD comes in, so what we're going to do is we're going to flame him, which gets him down towards a one-shot for us, and the flames end up finishing him off. We're up to our 5th kill of the game, 4.5k damage with 543 assistance, and now we're coming over onto this Primo Victoria. Now that we've got the flames back in, we're just going to use the flames again to put this guy down to a one-shot for our main cannon, and finish him off, which gives us the top gun. I knew I could take a shot from the Primo Victoria, so I was quite happy to do it. There's only one tank left on the MA team. It is this FCM50T. He's too far away for the flames, so we're just going to fire a shot into his back end and then try and hopefully finish him off. And we do. We finish him off for the 7th kill of the game. Really nice game for the Senjutsu TO-55, the brand new Iron Maiden collaboration tank at tier 8 for the Soviets. 7 kills, 5.3k damage, 3k blocked, ace tanker, devastator, high caliber, top gun, steel wall, 2.1k base XP. Really nice game for a tier 8 tank. And like I say, it's a pretty damn decent tank. It's down to you whether it's worth the price tag for it, which is 10,400 gold. I'd say there's probably better tanks to spend that much money on, but it's down to you really. I still think it's a pretty damn solid choice if you were to pick it up. So as always, everybody, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.
A great success!